are going to have a look at the railway budget that was announced yesterday. First, let's look at the last year's performance. The railway actually missed the revenue targets by a huge margin of 8.5%. Reasons for the same was attributed to the slowdown in the economic activity. The revenues of the railway come from passenger fares and goods being transported by the trains. So, because of the slowdown in economic activity, fewer passengers used railways last year. Second important reason was implementation of the 7th pay commission, which led to an increase of the employee cost of the railways. Highlights of this year's budget. Thankfully, there is no increase in passenger fares, neither there is an increase in the freight rates. So it is status quo all over. As usual, there was a lot of focus on better travel experience, which means Railways is going to try for easier booking, it's going to focus on safety, it's going to have local cuisine being available on board, there's going to be Wi-Fi, improved coaches. Traditionally, every year a lot of announcements are made around the same. An important point this year would be the availability of Wi-Fi at 100 stations across the country in association with Google. Third, let's look at the numbers for this year. The railway board is going to attempt to increase its revenue by 11%. Since there is no increase in fares, it means they are going to try to increase the volume of goods and try to increase the number of passengers every year. Second, the operating ratio this year was 90%. Operating ratio means for every 100 rupees, the government actually spent 90 rupees as expenses. This year, that is going to worsen at 92%. To meet the need for investment, because railway is obviously a huge operating body, the government is the announcement was for 1.2 trillion rupees. This means that 1.2 trillion rupees are going to be invested in the railways for better services. Out of this, the government is going to support 45,000 crores as budgetary allocation, which means the government will give 45,000 crores to the railways to modernize the railways. The remaining will come through a lot of other sources like partnership with the states, public-private partnerships, and also investment from companies like LIC. Fourth, how will the government increase the revenue by 11%? Traditionally, the government has two means. One is to increase the money raised to passengers and to freight. This year, the government is trying to increase the basket of commodity that it can transport from 10 to 40, hoping for a total increase in volume. More importantly, the entire budget seems to be focused on increasing the non-fare revenues. Now, this means the government is trying to monetize its assets. For example, the land around the railway station can be used for agriculture. Second, they are going to try to raise money to advertising, which means they will put up some advertising screens on the railway stations, giving their announcements in the train. The minister announced that a lot of developed countries have about 20% of the revenues coming from non-fare revenues, whereas for India the number is as low as 3%. So this is a chunk that the government is going to focus on. Fifth, let's have our opinion on the budget. Let's evaluate the budget. The budget is completely focused on the assumption that there is going to be an upswing in economic activity which will lead to higher revenues. Given the slowdown in the economy, this is highly unrealistic. For the last 4 or 5 years, we have not seen an increase in the revenue by 11%. The targets set are all very unrealistic, including the target set for non-fare revenues, target set for operating ratio, target set for revenues. All in all, I would say the budget is high on intent, but funding is going to be a big challenge. It is very likely that the government will not meet most of its targets set for the year, and implementation has always been a challenge. A lot of schemes are announced, but most of them do not see the light of the day. So let's hope that the government delivers satisfactorily on this budget. To sum up, it's high on intent and low on funds. Thank you.